All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Today's webinar is all about pooled employer plans. And whether this is a brand new concept for you or maybe you're refreshing on some things you already know, thank you so much for joining me for the next 25-30 minutes or so. So, again, my name is Jenna Witherbee. I'm one of the advisors on the team at 401k Plan Professionals. And if you're not familiar with our team, we are a financial advisory firm. We specialize in the retirement plan space. And so we help plan sponsors of all sorts of types and sizes of companies and their participants with their retirement plans. Today's webinar is a part of our webinar series, and the goal is to keep it 30 minutes or less. I will pause for questions maybe throughout and definitely at the end, so you can drop any questions you have in the chat. And we don't just talk about 401k plans on our webinar series, so it's a variety of different types of topics. Sure, about retirement plans sometimes, but also other financial concepts. And we really like to bring a broad range of concepts and education to you all. And we have 14 webinars that we either have done or still plan to do in 2025. The nice thing too is that you get a recording of this. It'll also live out on our website and our YouTube channel, along with all of our past webinars. So today I'm going to talk about pooled employer plans as well as state mandated programs and walk through some success stories and some examples of candidates of companies that are ideal for pooled employer plans, and then leave you with some additional resources as well. So you may be familiar with the basic model of a 401k plan. Also, 403b plans in the nonprofit space work very similarly. So they're employer-sponsored retirement savings accounts, and they allow employees to save a portion of their paycheck into their retirement account and invest in usually mutual funds, not all the time, but typically mutual funds that individuals choose from a core list of investments. Typically, 401k plans have 20 to 30 different mutual funds inside them. And then employers can contribute as well by way of a match or maybe a profit sharing contribution or both. And for most Americans, this is the most common way for individuals to save for retirement. So, I want to introduce a concept of a pooled employer plan to you today. So, this is a type of a multi-employer plan, and it allows unrelated employers to join together under a single retirement plan. They share in administration, record keeping, and fiduciary duties. I'll go into that more in a moment. And the administrator is a pooled plan provider, a PPP. So, some misconceptions here. I think sometimes people think the employers in a pooled employer plan need to be related in some way. They do not at all. You also don't need to have the same plan design as other plans inside a pooled employer plan. So, if you want to set your company's eligibility a certain way, you want to have a match, profit sharing, maybe you want a safe harbor arrangement, you can still select your own individual plan design features, and they may be completely different from the plan design of other employers inside the pooled employer plan. A PEP allows you to still remain fully compliant with your plan, still have a professionally managed 401k plan while minimizing your own employer responsibilities. So I have a chart here. You, as the employer, wear different hats when it comes to administration of a 401k plan. On the far right-hand side of this chart, you'll see if you're a single employer plan sponsor, so in other words, you have your own standalone 401k plan or a 403b plan, you have some duties there. You have quite a few duties there. So you're still, you're consulting on the plan design, you're selecting the provisions, you may be reviewing, signing, and filing the tax filing, the 5500. You are making sure you're following your plan's eligibility, tracking beneficiaries, also selecting your providers, selecting your advisors, making sure the contributions are being sent from payroll into the individual accounts. So when you work with a team of advisors, say like ours, we do a lot to mitigate your fiduciary responsibility as much as possible, but there are still a lot of responsibilities that are still there. Now look at the light blue columns. This would be in a pooled employer plan arrangement. So you have different parties, you have your pooled plan provider, you have a 338 investment manager, financial professionals, and then you as the adopting employer, you still need to do a few things, but you see it's far less. So selecting and monitoring the pooled plan provider, you are selecting the plan design provisions. So things like eligibility, withdrawal rules, are we going to have a match or a profit sharing, things like that. You do need to complete year-end census data. So when it comes to year end, you need to provide the data for the provider to do the testing and to make sure the plan is in compliance. So good data in, good data out. And you still need to make sure you're submitting the contributions on time. But you can see that going to a pooled employer plan, it does alleviate you as the employer from quite a few of those administrative duties. So the power of the pooled employer plan. It's less expensive in most cases compared to running your own singular 401k plan. I will say though, I have done some benchmarking of some of our current single 401k plans, and it's not always less expensive. But I think the thing too is to take into consideration some of your time that you spend, or maybe someone on your team spends with certain functions. Again, talking about the responsibilities, the work as employers, the work you have to do is minimized. Um, Experts assume fiduciary risks and responsibility or in liability. So the advisor, the 338 investment manager, the pooled plan provider themselves, they take on a lot of the fiduciary responsibilities. And you can focus on other things you need to focus on. A lot of 401k administrators that we work with, they wear so many different hats, and the 401k is just a sliver of their day-to-day responsibilities. We may be dealing with a CFO or a human resources manager, and they just quite simply, the 401k plan is just something that they would love to have kind of some of that work taken off their plate so they can focus on other things. So seeing the kind of this concept of a pooled employer plan over the last several years becoming more and more popular, being talked about more, and we go to industry conferences and we're hearing a lot more about it from other advisors. We created our own pooled employer plan called 401k Collective. And there are also, which I'm going to talk about, there's a lot of states that are coming out with mandates. So telling employers, you have to have a retirement plan by XYZ date, or you have to enter our state plan. And so for many reasons, we created 401k Collective. You can scan this QR and it takes you to the page on our website. There's a short video and there's some information out there on our pooled employer plan. So again, some differences here. This is really for companies, plan administrators that are looking to kind of outsource some of the fiduciary responsibilities of the retirement plan. Maybe you have a really small or overburdened human resources or benefits department. You want plan design flexibility and a cost-effective solution, really for any size employer. Um, I may say that it's great for smaller employers, but really this can be a great fit for larger employers as well. So those three main fiduciary duties that are outsourced essentially with this type of an arrangement would be the plan provider itself. In our case, we have Newport, which is an Ascensus company. They act as the PPP, the pooled plan provider. They do the administration, they have discretionary authority for most traditional plan sponsor responsibilities, and they relieve you of many fiduciary obligations. Um, Newport also is the 316 fiduciary, which means they are sending out all the notices, they are tracking eligibility, they manage your plan documents, the adoption agreement, the summary plan description. Um, if there are distribution requests, they're handling those, loans, hardships. So really there, I find plan sponsors find a lot of value there. And then on the right, our team acts as a 338 investment fiduciary. So we are selecting and monitoring the investments in the plan. Um, we would still have a committee meeting where you can join and go through the investment reports with us, and we go over the due diligence on the funds, looking at performance and fees. But at the end of the day, we could have that final say. For instance, if we have a fund that's underperforming, we could say, here's the alternatives we looked at, and here's the decision we are making to remove this fund and go to this fund. We can also choose the plan's default investment, the QDIA, and then, of course, responsible for ongoing selection, monitoring, and management of that investment menu. So here's just an example. The fee structure is really pretty simple. So we would send over to Newport and say, here's the number of people, here's the assets in the plan, here's kind of the cash flow that's expected or historical cash flow of it. And they would tell us a base fee. So this would be a base annual fee, an annual per participant fee, and then by an asset charge, there'd be a trust and custody fee, 0.03%. And then our advisor fee, we would set that based on the plan assets. So typically, if a plan is under a million, we'd be at 50 basis points. Once you cross kind of that 1-2 million mark, we would reduce that. So it's a sliding scale, just basically based on plan assets there. So here's just some examples of what a participant and a plan sponsor would see. So on the left-hand side, we have the participant dashboard. There's, of course, Spanish language capabilities. There is a landing page for quick enroll, both on website and on an app. So everything that is accessible via the web page is also in an app form. And then for the plan sponsor, there's a plan dashboard in the middle, lower middle of the page. So it gives you key plan information. Even though you're outsourcing a lot of the fiduciary responsibilities, you still have complete visibility on the plan, assets, participants, can run different reports, things like that. I just wanted to mention if you don't have a plan yet and you're starting one for the first time, there are some small employer startup plan credits. So these are for taxable years beginning basically January 1st, 2023 and going forward. Not going to spend a lot of time here, but I just wanted to mention that it can be very cost effective for you to start up a 401k, and that also would apply if you are starting inside a pooled employer plan. So if you remember anything from the presentation today, it's these three main reasons why should employers care about pooled employer plans. So reduce fiduciary responsibility, outsourcing to experts for compliance and risk management, and then a cost-effective solution for small businesses. So again, I'm kind of repeating myself, but I think it's worth hearing. There's significant reduction in administrative work and fiduciary burden. Um, it is nice to know I am only responsible for getting the money from payroll into their accounts, monitoring and selecting my providers, and then a lot of it, is handled by the other parties. And we're always happy to do a cost comparison. We can lay out for you, here's your cost as a single employer plan, and here's what it would look like if you move to a pooled employer plan. And I say in a lot of cases, the PEP is a very cost-effective solution. I have priced some where it's really, really close too. So, some employers might look at this and say, you know what, we think we're going to stick where we're at in a single employer plan, if that makes sense. So I briefly mentioned this, but many states are now mandating retirement programs, or at least in the works with mandating retirement programs. For example, where we are in Minnesota, there's a Minnesota Secure Choice retirement program that was established, and this will be effective 1/1/26. And so we know in these coming months and next couple years, we're going to be getting a lot of inquiries from employers saying, we have to have a plan now. We don't know if we should join the Minnesota state plan or if we want to create our own plan. And here's a look at what states are in the works with this. So the ones in purple have already established laws with mandating plans, retirement programs. Orange and blue are in the works, have had conversations about it or are leading into it. And then in the black, there's been no state efforts there. And just as a side note, many states have also passed legislation saying that financial literacy education needs to be included in public education curriculum. So these are really great things. We're happy about it. We talk to and work with adults every day. And we know and they know, if I had some of this education as a student when I was in K-12 education, I would be in a different place today. And I do think that we have a long way to go still, but it is nice to see that there are some programs starting to be in place for just general financial literacy as well as retirement savings. So basically the why behind of this type of legislation is there's a retirement savings deficit in our country. Many people aren't saving enough. And even if a company employers sponsors a 401(k) plan, there still can be a retirement savings deficit. But mandating these retirement programs is at least a step in the right direction to improve the access to employer-based retirement savings plans. So think of especially industries like retail or construction, um, even just self-employed individuals who have never really explored having a retirement plan for themselves or offering it to their staff. Um, the stat at the bottom, about 32% of Minnesota workers are not covered right now by a plan. That's about 700,000 workers. Um, and so this is just an example. You might be located in a different state, not Minnesota. But the way that Minnesota's is going to work is employers with 5 or more employees who don't already offer a retirement plan are required to enroll in the Minnesota Secure Choice Retirement Program. It's basically an IRA program. Employer contributions are not permitted here. So it's only the employee's money that they're withholding from their paychecks going into their secure choice IRA. Um, they are going to be an automatic enrollment type of a program. And this isn't set in stone, but Minnesota is proposing a 5% initial contribution and then 1% auto escalation every year. Employees can always opt out, or if they want to change a different percentage than that, then that's fine. Um, but again, it's an IRA type program, IRA limits. There will be an investment kind of core lineup that employees can choose from. So when an employer is kind of faced with this, should we sign up for the Minnesota plan or whatever state that they're in, or create our own plan? There's a series of questions that they'd want to ask themselves. And, if you work with an advisor to help you with this due diligence process, some of the questions to think about would be, do we really want to be hands off? Do we want to, what about the cost? Do we want, um, a match program? Do we want to have profit sharing? Are we going to use this as our overall kind of offering with our benefits? Do we want to attract and retain employees with our retirement plan? How many employees do we have? Are we expecting growth? Do we want higher limits than an IRA type arrangement? What's our staffing like to administer this? So just different things like that when deciding. I'm going to walk you through just a few examples too of some kind of ideal candidates back on this pooled employer plan concept. So again, employers that have maybe an overburdened HR team, or really small HR team. Maybe you're a small company, you all wear many different hats. Maybe you don't even really have someone that focuses a lot of time on the 401(k) plan. Companies looking for risk mitigation. Another thing I didn't mention yet was larger plans that have over 100 participants, they're required to do an annual 401(k) plan audit. And if you are a part of the PEP, all plans share in that audit cost. So for large plan filers, this can be a cost savings to really spread out that audit cost and just the work that goes into that audit every year. Startup plans. Um, so just some different examples there. Okay, so case study number one on the left, we have a manufacturing firm, about 8 million in 401(k) assets to over 200 employers, and they're spread out across 3 locations. And their pain points in the upper right, they've had a lot of turnover in the last year. Um, that annual audit is expensive. It takes a lot of time, kind of cumbersome loan and hardship approval process. And so they may be a really good fit for a pooled employer plan. They're a large filer. They can outsource some of the administration, really reduce the time and the cost spent on that audit. Um, so the PEP may be a really good fit there. Here's another one, a business owner with no plan yet. They have 12 employees and growing. Let's say they're in Minnesota, and so they know I'm going to have to offer a plan next year, or we're going to use the state plan. Some pain points for them, they are competing with other businesses for employees. They're really having a tough time with attracting and retaining talent. Their current employees are asking for more robust benefits. How come we don't have a 401(k)? My spouse has one, my neighbors have one. I really would like a way to save for retirement through my paycheck. The CFO has many different roles, right? So they would be a really good fit too for a PEP. So startup plans, um, I think just in general, could find a lot of value in a pooled employer plan, offer robust benefits for their employees, be able to attract and retain, outsource that administration, and then they wouldn't have to um, they wouldn't have to be a part of the Minnesota state mandate plan. So they'd be exempt if they offer their own retirement plan. So here's one that actually would be a really good fit for the state plan. So we have business owner, no plan yet, 6 employees, including the 2 owners, not really looking to grow. Um, no, though, next year they either have to start their own plan or be a part of the Minnesota plan. Their current employees aren't asking for one. They surveyed their staff, and only one said they actually would participate in a retirement plan. The owners aren't really looking for that increased, limit with being able to save into a 401(k). They invest elsewhere, and they just, at this point in time, they really don't see the need for a robust type of plan. They'd be a really good fit for the state IRA program. Simple solution, inexpensive. Um, Maybe only a couple of their staff will use it, satisfies the state requirement. And here's the thing too is you can always change your mind later. So let's say you start with something simple at first. Later on, you can kind of graduate to your own 401(k) or become part of a pooled employer plan down the line. Okay, I had a couple questions that come through. Will I still get the great education from 401k plan professionals for my employees? Yes. So this is something as an organization that is really important to us. We're really passionate about the education piece. So coming and doing the group meetings, offering one-on-one meetings, taking phone calls from your staff too when they have questions, instead of just saying, hey, you can call Newport. Hey, you can call whoever the provider is. And so that is absolutely still a part of our value proposition, and that would be a part of that fee that we are charging. Absolutely. Great question. And then another one, did you say I can keep my match and eligibility provisions the same? Do I have to have automatic enrollment with the PEP? Really great question. So if you have an established plan right now, yes, you can choose your plan design. You can keep it the same or you could make a change at the point of joining a pooled employer plan. But absolutely, that can still be customized to you and your organization. You don't have to, even if you're a part of a pooled employer plan, that doesn't mean you have to all have the same plan design. And that's a really great thing. Um, you do not have to have automatic enrollment with your PEP, although we are seeing a definite increase in plans that want to offer automatic enrollment, auto escalation. These are very popular provisions. And quite frankly, when you're part of a PEP, since a lot of that administration is taken over for you, it's easy. As long as you're providing the right data through the payroll to your pooled plan provider. They track the eligibility, they track the automatic enrollment, auto escalation features. So that'd be something we definitely recommend considering. Okay, if there's any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Here's some resources for you. Yep, those are the only questions so far. Okay, so here's our just general 401k planprofessionals.com website. We also have that separate web page just for pooled employer plan information, 401k Collective. And then here's our YouTube channel. So this will house not only the recording of this webinar, but all of our past webinars are out there. And then, like I mentioned, this is a part of our webinar series. Part of our series that has had really good feedback is our fiduciary training. And so if you are a plan sponsor, this is really valuable information, just going through what even is your role as a fiduciary on the plan, kind of best practices. We did hot topics. This is an ever-changing landscape in the 401k world. And so in June, we did 201 that had kind of some trends and hot topics to think about. And then in October, we'll be doing our third part, which is talking more about the fiduciary liability and some different uh, plan design kind of strategies for different employers. And then here's our other general webinars for 2025. Like I mentioned, we have 14 this year that we're doing, and really over the last 5, 6 years, we've been hosting these monthly webinars, and so our library is getting rather large, but we love bringing different topics and different education to you. So our next webinar is on August 21st, and this is our Medicare 101. We've done this the last few years, and this is a very highly attended webinar, very popular. And then in September, I'm talking about investment decisions called My Brain Made Me Do It. So kind of thinking through the psychology behind investing. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or someone on my team. There's our phone number. There's my email address as well. If there's any more questions, you can feel free to drop them in the chat. I don't see any more coming in. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for your time. I really appreciate it. You'll get the recording of this and feel free to share it with anyone that may find value in it. Have a great rest of your day.